Welcome back, everyone. At this hour, investigations are underway across the U.S. relating to crimes that directly affect the border. In particular, weapons trafficking, and that's where the ATF steps in. They're here to explain what they do, and we have Agent Jonathan Blaze here to explain. Thanks so much for being here with us this morning.
Well, thank you for having me.
You're based out of Brownsville. Why don't you go ahead and tell our viewers what the ATF is, first of all?
ATF is one of the federal agencies responsible for investigating firearms trafficking and violent crime. We're a component of the Department of Justice.
Okay, and so it's especially important here in the Valley. We live on the border, and you guys have deep ties to the border region because obviously being in a border town, sometimes we definitely fear that spillover violence from Mexico, and a lot of that does involve trafficking of weapons, and not just that, but other crimes as well.
Yes, it does. One of our initiatives under our business model, frontline business model, is violent crime, and under the violent crime, firearms trafficking falls under that. And what we deal with a lot of down here is the straw purchasing of firearms. And the straw purchasing of firearms is essentially an individual who is not prohibited to have a firearm, buys that firearm from a legal source and diverts it into the criminal hands, and therefore ends up into countries like Mexico or things like that, where it's used by the cartel for violence. Absolutely. And how do you guys stop that from happening? We stop it utilizing our criminal intelligence resources. Things public sometimes, a lot of times, helps when they have selling a firearm privately or something like that, and a suspicious individual approaches them to purchase that firearm, or when firearms are covered and it is traced back to an individual recovered from a crime scene, and it's traced back to the last known purchaser, and that's how we start our investigation a lot of times.
You know, what sorts of fines or what kind of jail time can people face if they are actually working with criminal organizations to traffic weapons?
It can vary right from the low end, from the least probation all the way up to life sentences. It depends on what level this person is involved with the criminal activity. Unfortunately, there's no direct firearms trafficking laws to enforce. There's a lot of times we have to enforce the straw purchasing laws, and then the ancillary violent crime laws, which can be incorporated along with that.
But that's not the only thing that you guys do. You alcohol and tobacco as well. So how does that kind of play into this?
That's correct. ATF essentially started out as prohibition in the prohibition days, and we're enforcing the prohibition laws against alcohol. Nowadays, it's not as much prevalent as far as our enforcement, alcohol and tobacco, but it is still a part of it, and it's still part of our legacy as an agency.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much for being here this morning. We really appreciate your time. And if you want more information, you can also head to valleycentral.com to get this full interview. We'll be right back in just a minute. Stay with Action 4 Sunrise.